Hello, this is George Hutton, and you are listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. Today we begin a new study about money based on the book The Money Brain. For more information, please visit mindpersuasion.com/money-brain. Introduction. Money. By the time you finish listening to this podcast, you will know everything there is to know about money. This includes the answers to your most pressing question about money: how to get more of it. This will not be based on magic or metaphors. Money is a real thing. Money is not the realm of imagination. Once upon a time, there wasn't any money. Then they invented money. Now there are huge amounts of money floating around. Just looking at the Forex markets, there is $5.3 trillion traded every day. Money changing from dollars to yen to euros and back. At the same time, there is not nearly enough money in your bank account. Everybody seems to have a love-hate relationship with money. We'd love to have more money, we don't know how, and we hate that. At the same time, we have plenty of subconscious beliefs about money, both good and bad. It is our goal with this podcast to stick as closely to the facts as we possibly can: economic facts, biological facts, entrepreneurial facts. This will require we spend some time thinking as consciously about these ideas as we can. We won't spend much time talking about metaphysical ideas that will only require you believe something strong enough and wait for magic to happen. We will be treating money and how it is made just as scientifically as we treat the process of baking a cake. To understand how to bake a cake, you would need to know about cooking and how the process of cooking changes batter into a cake, the way different flavors go together and don't go together. We will be necessarily using metaphors not as a way of skirting any issues, but to more deeply understand them. It turns out that most everything we think about in our reality is described to us in metaphors. At the very basic level, everything that exists is, in actuality, a metaphor. According to quantum physicists, actual scientists, not metaphysicians, matter itself is really a metaphor. Everything we see is pure energy. This doesn't mean that because everything is pure energy that we can somehow use this idea to create a money-making shortcut. It means that protons and neutrons are themselves made up of quarks, which are mostly pure energy, vibrating at extremely high rates. But just knowing this doesn't help. The bigger stuff gets, the more it is bound by Newtonian physics. If you only have one proton, then you can talk about the metaphor of matter and how matter is just a perception and how everything is really energy. But knowing that everything is really energy doesn't mean you can wish a chocolate cake into existence. If you want a chocolate cake, you must follow a recipe or go to the cake shop and buy one. You can't leverage the idea of matter as metaphor to shortcut the process. Metaphors are only helpful if they help us understand the underlying process. The metaphor of matter, according to particle physicists, matter is just highly concentrated energy waves, helps us to talk about matter, create experiments using matter, and more importantly, build things using matter. So while we will be using plenty of metaphors, they will only be to help us understand. We are already getting sidetracked. We want to understand money. We want to understand it so we can get some more. Not just a little bit, but as much as we can. We must repeat that none of this will be magic. We'll use the following metaphor to describe the non-magical outcome of making money. Cake metaphor. Suppose you are 5 years old and your mom surprised you with a birthday cake, and suppose you had never seen a cake before. You ask your mom where the cake came from, and she said it came from the cake fairy. The cake fairy brings good boys and girls cakes on their birthday. Since you are 5, you believed her. Let's say you have a little brother whose birthday is in a week. Again, your mom surprised you with a cake. Again, you believed it was magic, that it came from the cake fairy. Then suppose you grew up and learned how to make a cake on your own. Once you learned how to make a cake from scratch, it was no longer magical. It was no longer based in wonderful ideas of magical fairies coming and delivering magical things. Baking a cake would no longer be magical. Baking a cake would be something you could do any time you wanted. With enough practice and enough time, you could make any cake you wanted. It would be so predictable you wouldn't even need to think about making a cake. You could even watch TV while making a cake, or talk on the phone, or listen to music, or take hits off that secret bottle of tequila you keep hidden behind the flour. And if you planned on making a cake in the future, you would have to schedule it. You might even wake up one morning, check your scheduling app, and see that later that day you had to make a cake for somebody's party. Maybe in this metaphor, you are the local cake baking hero that everybody depends on. You might look to the hour of baking a cake as something you just gotta do. It doesn't totally suck, but if they called and canceled, you might be a little relieved having that hour to do something a little bit easier. Transitions. In the previous example, the childhood idea of cakes seems magical and mysterious, dependent on some outside forces. Then there was a transitional period where you learned how to make a cake. This wasn't instant. You can't really imagine reading a book about making a cake and then suddenly being able to make a cake. But with enough practice, you could make a cake at the level of unconscious competence. You would make a perfect cake without using very much of your conscious mind. This is possible with money, but it absolutely requires you get rid of any magical ideas about money. This also absolutely requires that you get rid of any negative beliefs about money. Once you ditch magical money thinking and ditch limiting and largely subconscious beliefs about money, money will be mechanical, just like baking a cake. It will take time, it will take practice, and it will require that you learn from experience, just like you'd imagine learning how to bake a cake from experience. The very first cake you would ever bake probably sucked. Maybe it didn't taste so bad, but it wouldn't be something you would want to put in the front window of a cake shop. And guess what? You would never ever be a perfect cake baker. You would always feel like there's room for improvement. The more cakes you baked, the better of a cake baker you'd be. The more complicated and delicious cakes you could make. Some people spend their entire careers becoming expert cake bakers. They have shops, product lines, and they make a ton of money baking cakes. You must think of money the same way, just like a baker. Even the best baker the world has ever seen will never feel they have really finished perfecting their craft. You will never ever get to the point where you can think, wow, now I know how to make money. I can relax and enjoy myself. Making money is a skill. Once you ditch both magical money beliefs and negative money beliefs, making money will be a skill just like any other skill. The more you practice, the better you get. The less you practice, the slower you'll improve. That is our promise. By the time you finish listening to this podcast, you will have the necessary tools to build the skills. You'll understand the recommended exercises to turn whatever your beliefs about money are into a rock-solid skill that you will be able to improve for the rest of your life. I'm George Hutton. Thank you for listening to the Mind Persuasion Podcast. For more information, please visit mindpersuasion.com. I look forward to speaking with you again soon.